Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome at today's webinar, Buying a Home in Rotterdam. Good to know today's session will be recorded and shared with you afterwards. So if you have any questions about a specific topic or whatsoever, you can watch it back, or of course, you can also reach out to me. My name is Rick. I am a buying manager at Expat Housing Network. I live in Rotterdam. I live in the city center, so I'm responsible for the region in and around Rotterdam. I'm Dutch, but for my studies, I've spent some time in South Africa and Colombia, so I know a little bit what it's like to settle in a new country. At EHN, we believe that greatness is achieved in the agency of others. So I work with an amazing team. And one of them is here with me today. Ludo, maybe you can introduce yourself as well.
Yes, of course. My name is Ludo, obviously. I am a housing specialist at Expat Housing Network. Been with the company for over 2 years now, primarily focused on the Amsterdam area. So as you guys might know, Rotterdam and Amsterdam have a little feud going on, but not in the in the vibe at EHN, luckily. My role today here is to support Rick and to take responsibility for the Q&A. So if you guys have any questions during the webinar, anything that pops up live, then feel free to pop in the Q&A and I will answer the questions live. If there's anything that unanswered after the webinar, or there are specific questions where I think maybe that's good to talk about with everyone, then we'll also handle those questions at the end of the webinar.
Yeah, exactly. We scheduled some time at the end of the webinar to cover those. But if you have a question during the webinar, please feel free to put it in the Q&A. Apart from us, we have our 2 Brazilian stars. First of all, Joanna. She is responsible for the region of Eindhoven in the south, and Rafaela, she is all the way up north at Groningen. And then last but not least, we have Ellen, who's also living in Amsterdam. A brief introduction to EHN. First of all, good to know we are no traditional real estate agents. I'll tell you a bit later why. As could have been seen, we are either expats ourselves or we lived in a foreign country, so we know what it's like to settle in a new country. Today's webinar is focused on buying, but we also support with renting and letting. So if you are interested in any of those services, we can support you with that as well. I mentioned we are no traditional real estate agents. Why? We charge a fixed fee. A lot of traditional real estate agents, they charge you between 1% and 2% of the purchase price. We believe that we offer the same service to someone who's buying a property of 500,000 euros and maybe 800, let's say. So you upfront, you'll know what you'll be paying, but we will discuss this at the end of the presentation as well. What is our added value? First of all, selling agents take our office more seriously, right? We have a big network. We've been in the industry for some years now. So probably agents have worked with us before. They know we checked our clients, so it's not likely that we'll pull out. So yeah, that is one of the reasons why selling agents prefer to work with buying agents. Because of our network, we are also able to book viewings when it's sometimes no longer possible for you guys. Often selling agents reserve special spots for other agencies, which enables us to book the viewings. Then very important, we support by reviewing Dutch legal documents, right? So after viewing, you'll receive a list of documents. Every property has its own rules, restrictions, regulations, and we help you with we support you with reviewing those. Then very important, point is the market value, right? So you do want to know what the actual value is of a property before you submit an offer. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but of course, very important. Then I already mentioned it, right? So by reviewing the documents, we'll inform you about the rules, restrictions, regulations. And of course, we, as agents, we also have specific expertise about locations and so on. So we can support you with that as well. And then last but not least, we make sure you don't make the same mistakes as we made. We've been through the process quite some times. I think we were able to purchase around 150 properties last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ludo, but yes, we've seen a lot of different cases, and we'd like to avoid to make mistakes. All right, so what will we cover today? First, a short introduction, then we'll talk about the market, the topic of savings. So what do you actually need in order to be able to purchase a property? 3 tips to win in the current market. And last but not least, we'll cover the entire process by going over the timeline. I've introduced myself, Ludo has introduced himself, but I'd like to know you guys also a little bit so we can tailor the webinar a little bit towards where you are in the process. So let me introduce my poll. Feel free to answer. As mentioned, I'd like to know where you are so we can tailor a little bit to the stages. All right, I see most of you found us via the website, Instagram. Okay, you would like to settle in the Netherlands. Well, nice to meet. Great to hear. We're happy that you see yourself living in our country. Most of you want to build up equity, and the rents are high. Yeah, I think we all know that the rents are extremely high, but we'll talk about this later on. Thank you. Let's talk about the market first. Here we see a graph or the development of the prices in the Netherlands over the past years, right? So from 2008 till 2013, you'll see a decrease. Of course, this was the financial crisis. And then from 2013 until last year, prices went sky high, as we all know. The average purchase price in Q3 last year, those are the latest numbers we have, was 425,000 euros for the Netherlands. New builds, of course, are a little bit more expensive, almost reaching 500,000. And then, as you can see, the average purchase price in 2021 was 386,000 euros, so just below the 400. But as you might have heard, the market is changing. So let's zoom in a little bit on the Rotterdam area. I'm sure most of you have heard that the market is cooling down, prices are decreasing, right? So if we look at those numbers, there's a few interesting ones. First of all, if you look at the properties for sale, in Q3, there was an increase of 31% compared to the quarter before, and even 87% compared to the year before. If we look back on 2021, and I'm sure Ludo can confirm as well that it was super difficult to actually even get a viewing. And then if you were able to view the property, people overbid by crazy amounts. But for you as potential buyers, I think it's a good thing that there's more properties on the market, right? So yeah, very important. And since there's more properties on the market, this also influences the purchase price, right? If there's more properties to choose from, the prices will decrease. And that's what you'll see. Prices decreased by 4.5% compared to the quarter before. If we look back to 2021, there was still a small increase of 1.3%. For the price per square meter, we see similar numbers. So a decrease compared to the quarter before, but a small increase compared to the year before. And since the market is cooling down, you also see that the sales time, so how long it will take for a property to be sold, will be longer. So it's around 30 days, whereas a year before it was 27 days. So it gives you as buyers a little bit more time. All right. If we look back, so what caused the price to increase? First of all, we have a few fiscal benefits. And the first one is the tax exemption. So if you buy a property and you're going to live in the property yourself, you have to pay transfer tax, 2% transfer tax. However, if you buy your first property in the Netherlands, you are under the age of 35 and the purchase price is below 440,000 euros, you're exempt from the transfer tax. I see I have a purple face. Maybe this will help. Yeah. All right. Let me continue. So again, if you're under the age of 35, the purchase price is below 440,000 euros, and it's your first property, you're exempt from paying the 2% transfer tax. Then we have the interest rebate. So the interest you will pay on your mortgage is tax deductible. I think last year you could claim back 40%. For this year, it's around 37%. But yeah, since interest rates went up, you can also claim back a little bit more. So that's nice. No capital gains. What do we mean by that? A lot of people made a nice profit when they sold their property. No taxes have to be paid over the profit you made when selling your property. Of course, if you put it in a new property, no capital gains have to be paid. If you put it on a bank account, yeah, then of course you have to pay tax on it. Then last but not least, we have the tax-free parent donation. And this is only for Dutch people. But it's the case that people can donate. Last year it was around 100,000 euros. This year I think it's around 30,000 euros to their children if they are about to buy a property. It says ending because this rule this is not applicable or possible anymore from next year on. Then we already talked about it, the high rents. The rents in the Netherlands at the moment are extremely high. So people are going to look for alternatives, which is buying a property. Especially a year or two ago, I think that the monthly payments for a mortgage were even lower than renting. And of course, when you have a mortgage, you pay off your debt, you build up equity. So a lot of people were interested in buying a property. And then last but not least, and I think this is the main factor why the prices went up so fast, is the lack of supply. So at the moment, we have a shortage of 300,000 houses in the Netherlands. And of course, it's basic economics, right? Supply and demand define the price. There's just much more demand than properties. Our government is working on it. So they have set some targets where they want to build 900,000 houses before 2030. I think they set this target somewhere last year, so it means that they have to build 100,000 houses a year, or they're aiming for 100,000 a year. The max we ever built was 70. And with everything going on in the world right now, projects get delayed, raw materials get more expensive. So if you ask me, I'm not sure if they're gonna reach their targets. And that's what brings me to my conclusion, right? A lot of people ask me, is it still a good time to buy? Because of the interest rates that went up, right? People talk, oh, the interest rates are super high. Well, if we look at it from a historical perspective, or if we look at different countries, the interest rates are not that high. 4% is not super high. Of course, if we compare it to last year, it went super fast, but it's not extremely high. So from an interest perspective, it's okay. And what I want to say is that the shortage we have, yeah, I don't see that changing in 1 or 2 years, right? So therefore, I don't expect a major decrease in terms of value. I think the market is stabilizing, which is a good thing, right? We couldn't continue as before. But I don't expect a major decrease just because of the fact that there's so many people looking for a property, that there is a huge demand for properties. Then some other relevant topics and articles. The first one is about the self-occupancy obligation. So for those who are interested in buying a property and renting it out after a few years, please be aware of the self-occupancy obligation. So in Rotterdam, we have 16 neighborhoods which have this obligation. So this applies for properties with a WOZ value to up to 405,000 euros. What does it mean? Basically, you're not allowed to rent it out, only under strict restrictions. Then the NHG threshold increased to 405,000 euros in 2023. So it was 355 last year. So it's quite a big step, which is a good thing. For those who don't know what NHG is, it's a safety net for people that can't pay their mortgage anymore, because of any of the scenarios mentioned, right? So if you lose your job, if your partner dies, they will support you with paying your mortgage. If you have to sell your property, right, and your mortgage, your debt is bigger or higher than the money you'll receive from selling your property, they will cover the difference. Wow, what does it mean for you as a buyer? As a buyer, there's less risk, and also for the bank, there's less risk. So therefore, they will offer you a discount on the interest rates. In order to make use of the NHG, you do have to pay, I think, 0.6% of the mortgage amount. However, as mentioned, you will get a discount, so it is beneficial to make use of it. And then last but not least, the mortgage norms have changed in 2023. For two-income households, the second income counts for 100%, which was 90% last year. And then for 2024, it might be that they will also look at the student debts and the energy efficiency of the properties. But for now, this is the case. I think that was enough about the market. Let's talk about the savings, right? So what would you actually need in order to be able to buy a property? If we look at this overview, those costs can be considered as the buying cost. The first one is the transfer tax. We already talked about it. If you're below the age of 35, the purchase price is below 440 and it's your first property, you're exempt from paying the transfer tax. If let's say you are 32, the purchase price is 450, you do have to pay. Another example, let's say the purchase price is 400,000 euros. You are 33, but your partner is 36, and you're buying the property together. That means that one of you has to pay transfer tax, so you end up paying 1%. And this is the 2% is if you're going to live in the property yourself. If you buy a property as an investment, you pay 10.4%. So that's quite a big percentage, if you ask me. Then, of course, you have the notary fees. The transfer and the mortgage deed, it depends a little bit on the notary you'll choose, but both of them will be between 600 and 1100 euros. Good to know, everything in the process which is mortgage related is tax deductible. So of course the mortgage deed is tax deductible. Then, in order to arrange a mortgage, you need a bank or an independent mortgage advisor. The bank often, around the 1,500. An independent mortgage advisor is a little bit more expensive. However, we always recommend to at least have a chat with a mortgage advisor, since they can offer you a mortgage from maybe 30 different banks, whereas the bank you're with at the moment can only offer you a few different types of mortgages. So, of course, if you have more options, the mortgage you will choose better suit your needs, your criteria. So if you ask me, it's worth the additional 1,000 or 1,500 euros, because what is €1,000 on 30 years? And for those of you, if you want to talk to a mortgage advisor, please feel free to put your email in the chat, and we can share some details of mortgage advisors we have good experiences with. I'm sure they can tell you everything about the process. Then the typical real estate agent, I mentioned this in the beginning already. Normally they will charge you between 1% and 2% of the purchase price. Again, at EHN, we charge a fixed fee, but I'll show you in a bit. The appraiser, so if you want to apply, if you're applying for a mortgage, the bank wants to know what the actual value of the property is. So you need an appraisal report. If you ask me, 700-800 euros normally. The technical inspector, 440 euros. The bank guarantee, I think this is 250 euros. And then last but not least, the NHG. As I mentioned, the cost to make use of NHG are 0.6% of the mortgage amount, but it is beneficial since you get the discount on your interest rate. Then 3 tips to win in the current market. And the first one is a very important one. It's about value, right? You do want to know what the value of a property is before you submit an offer. And I think I can explain this best by showing you an example. Let's say we have this property, a nice property in Rotterdam, asking price 395,000 euros. So we have the asking price, we do a price research, right? We're going to define the market value, and we see the value is 415,000 euros. Wow. In order to make a winning offer, we offered 435,000 euros. Then the difference between the asking price and the purchase price is 40,000 euros, more or less 10%. However, the difference between the market value and the purchase price is 20K, which is only 4.8%. Keep this in mind. Well, let's say we have the same property, but now it was listed for 375. Again, we did our research and the market value is 415. Purchase price also similar to the previous example, 435,000 euros. Now the difference between the asking price and the purchase price is 16%. However, the difference between the market value and the purchase price is the same, right? It's 4.8%. What do we want to say with this, right? Often you hear people saying, oh, you need to overbid by this percentage or this amount. No, you have to look at the value of the property, and based on that, you can define the amount you would like to offer. And this is an example where you overbid, right? But it could also be the other way around. The market is changing. We don't know if the asking price is similar or close to the actual value. So you do want to know before you submit an offer what the market value is, right? You don't want to offer 415 where the value is only 375 and you have to pay the difference from your own pocket. So again, please look at the market value before you submit an offer. Then talking about the offers. So what is a winning offer? A winning offer is a good price, but not per se the highest price. And what do I mean by that? Let's say you made an offer with a financial clause of 100%. So that means that you the 100% of the purchase price has to be financed from your mortgage. But let's say you offer much more than the value, then the selling agent will say, I don't think they will get everything financed with the mortgage, so they will choose for a lower offer. Offer security to the seller. What do we mean by that? Maybe you work with a mortgage advisor, and they can provide you with a statement saying that, okay, I checked my client, I'm secure about their financial situation, this is what they can borrow, which of course offers security to the seller. Or maybe you have some savings which you're able to use. Please inform the seller about this to make them feel more certain about your offer. Then offer the least amount of hassle. A good example, let's say the sellers bought a new build property, which is finished by the end of the year or during summer. Yeah, be flexible with the transfer date, right? Don't demand them to transfer the property to you as soon as possible and them having to move 3 times in a year. Or maybe the sellers move back to their home country. It might be interesting for you to take over the furniture. Those kind of things can work in your favor. And then last but not least, offer a personal touch, right? Selling a property, a house often is a very emotional process for someone, especially if they lived in a property for a long time. So often the sellers do want to know, okay, who's going to live in the property. So it could be helpful to add a picture, write a story. Why do you like the property? To convince them that you are the right owner. And then the third tip is do your due diligence. And we have 2 parties involved, the technical inspector and the appraiser. And my question to you guys is, when do you book the technical inspector and the appraiser in the buying process? Maybe you can give your answer in the chat. I'd like to know what you think. I'll give you some time. I see Amal, after your offer is accepted. All right, let's just have a look. Amal was right. You book them directly after your offer is accepted, preferably as soon as possible. Why is that? Normally, when your offer is accepted, you have around 10 days in order to sign the contract. And before you sign the purchase contract, you do want to know if there's technical issues with the property. You do want to know how much you can borrow, right? Because you can finance 100% of the value. If there are issues with the property, you do want to negotiate again with the selling party. So the sooner, the better. So yeah, as mentioned, directly after your offer is accepted, and after you've signed the purchase contract, you still have a cooling off period of 3 days. And within those 3 days, you can dissolve the contract without paying a penalty. But after those 3 days, you have to pay a penalty equal to 10% of the purchase price. So yeah, again, you don't want to find out that there is a leakage or issues with the roof after your cooling off period, because then you don't have any leverage to negotiate. Or if you want to get rid of the deal, you have to pay the 10%. So I hope that is clear. What I will do now, I will go over the entire process and tell you how we as EHN can support you or guide you through this process. Of course, it all starts with the search, right? I think most of you are familiar with the website Funda. It's the main platform in the Netherlands. Basically, all the properties are listed on there. But let's say you found something interesting, you can send the property to us and we can help you with booking the viewing, and we can attend the viewing with you. And of course, during the viewing, it is important to check the conditions of the property, to ask some critical questions to the selling agent. But what I always say, the most important thing is that you need to feel at home, right? For those of you who've done who did some viewings already, I think they can confirm. Often within a few minutes, you know if it's a yes or a no. But if it's a yes and you do want to submit an offer, you come back to us, because this feeling is not enough, right? So we do have to look at the numbers and the documents. So we do a price research where we define the market value. We look for similar properties in the area, and based on that, we can see what the actual value is. And the other research we'll do is a property document review. As mentioned, we'll check any documents related to the property. What are the restrictions? Are there any issues with moisture, with foundation, whatever, name it? We'll discuss the researches, and based on that, we can draft the offer. We will submit the offer for you, do the negotiations if needed, and then hopefully we get our offer accepted. And once the offer is accepted, what we just saw, we directly book the technical inspector and the appraiser, right? We do want to get the results as soon as possible. But before we sign the contract, we review the report, and of course the purchase contract, the draft. Are the dates correct? Are there no strange clauses in the contract? But if everything is fine, we can sign the contract. If you've signed the purchase agreement or the purchase contract, you have all the documents you will need in order to start your mortgage application. It depends a bit on the bank, on your mortgage advisor, but normally this will take about 4 weeks. As yeah, I know there's some mortgage advisors, they can do it a little bit faster, but again, it depends a bit on your file. And then after the 4 weeks, after your mortgage has been approved, the final thing left to do is to go to the notary's office and sign the mortgage and transfer deed. So this is the day where you'll become the official owner of the property. But before we go to the notary, we go to the property once more to do a final inspection to see if the property is in the same condition as before. Let's say the current owners, they broke something with moving out. Obviously, that's something you don't want. So then we inform the notary about it, and they will keep a certain amount in their account in order to fix it. But if everything is fine, you can sign the deeds, and I hope you will be the proud owners of your new property in Rotterdam. That's it about the timeline. If it's not clear, please don't hesitate to contact me afterwards. But I think it's a nice summary of the process. Then talking about EHN, we offered a few different packages. The smart package, then we are more like an online consult, I would say. However, we'll still guide you through the process. With the complete package, I think everything goes as I just described. And then if you're interested in buying a pre-construction property, we can also support you with that. But the process is a little bit different. So yeah, options enough. If you do want to look into your file, if you have any questions, please feel free to schedule a free intake call with us. We can look at your file, at your situation, and see if we can support you. And that's it. I think we're at the Q&A part. Ludo, are there still some questions left?
I have a few questions that are still unanswered. I was just typing like a madman, but the questions are coming up.
Yeah.
I have a question from Case. Why is your rate higher above 500K?
Yeah, good question. What I said, agents often charge a percentage of the purchase price. We don't, so we offer a fixed fee. However, for properties in the higher segment, it might require a little bit of extra work for us. So therefore, we charge a little bit more than properties below.
Yeah, indeed, there's more time, more research needed, and well, the risks are higher as well. So we also need to make sure that the risk and reward is in balance there. Cool. Thanks very much for asking that. A question from Kohei, if I'm answering or pronouncing that correctly. When should we find a mortgage advisor? Is that before contacting a seller or after?
Good question.
Yeah.
What I always recommend is to talk to them before you start the process, right? You do want to know how much you're able to borrow. You don't want to find a property which you really like, and then in the end, your mortgage is much lower than expected. So therefore, I always recommend to talk with a mortgage advisor before you start the process. And as I mentioned before, what they also can do, they can help you during the process by writing statements and those kind of things. So the sooner the better, I would say.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Thanks. Question from Carl. I think I am pronouncing that name correctly. Is the yearly bonus calculated with your annual gross salary when applying to a loan?
I think bonuses are not included in the mortgage. In your mortgage.
It depends a little bit which mortgage provider you're working with. So in these cases, we always advise you to work with a mortgage advisor. There are some banks that prefer not to work with a bonus. It also depends on the bonus itself. Is it a bonus that is that you get by getting a team target, or is it just target for yourself? There are a lot of variables that come into play, but there are some mortgage providers that will take a 13-month or a bonus into consideration as well. So definitely have a chat with a mortgage advisor in this case.
Yeah.
From Samuel, after having a signed contract in 2022, without having finished the process, is it still possible to benefit from the new transfer tax rule from 2023?
Yeah, so what they will look at is the transfer date. So even if you've signed the purchase contract last year, but the transfer is this year, they will look at the new limit. So the 440,000 euros instead of the 405.
Cool. Nice. Question from Andras. How long is the mortgage limit advisor will advise you valid? Like how long is the offer valid for a mortgage?
Yeah, good question. That also depends on the bank. So sometimes, let's say what I explained, if you buy a property now and the sellers, they only want to move out by the end of the year or after 6 months, you do accept sign your mortgage offer right now. Some banks, they can this will last for 6 months. With us, it's 3 months. But I think normally it's 6 months.
Yeah, indeed. Typically, it's 6 months. There are some mortgage providers that are specified on new build properties, for example. New build properties, normally they need around 9 months. So you have specific products that will take a little bit longer. Definitely. Okay. A question from Sumalik. Sumalik works with a trading company, so bonuses are a big part there. Have we worked with cases like this before?
I haven't worked with someone who was in trading, but we have worked with specific cases, right, to get the mortgage. Again, I think most of the questions emphasize why it is so important to work with a mortgage advisor and with a bank. I do want to highlight, please inform them about all your financial obligations, right? If you have a debt, if a lease car, whatever, be clear from the beginning to avoid any issues in the future. But I think the mortgage advisors we work with can definitely handle a situation like this.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's good to see the differences. We from Expat Housing Network are more focused on securing the property, whereas a mortgage advisor will be helping you to secure the financing. So this is a little bit more on the mortgage advisor side compared to our side. I personally have worked with multiple cases where our clients have worked on a variable income. But to be honest, for securing the property, there's not a very big difference there. It really comes to the mortgage requesting process, and that will have to happen with a mortgage advisor.
Yeah.
We have a few mortgage related questions. I'm just going to ask them, Rick, and otherwise we'll refer to to a mortgage advisor.
Yeah.
Do you know if the 30% ruling also has impact on the mortgage?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, indeed, it does. So how the bank sees it, if your spending capability is higher because you have to pay lower taxes, or if you get, you pay 70% instead of 100%, or you get 30% back, sorry, in that sense, then yeah, your spending capability is higher, and therefore your loaning capability is also higher. Okay, speaking of Rotterdam itself, Rick, can you advise on certain regions outside of Rotterdam that are good for families with kids, like Hoogvliet maybe, or Schiedam Noord?
Yeah. Of course, it depends, right? What you're looking for. Schiedam, for example, it's just outside Rotterdam, but it has a good connection via the metro. Within 20 minutes, you are in the city or the heart of the city. So those options could definitely be a good option, right? But also Prinsenland, which is on the other side of the highway. It's a very friendly area. I think there's enough options if you're looking at for a place as a family just outside the city itself.
Yeah. Okay, cool. When it comes to renting out rooms in a house, what costs are involved, like taxes or possibly on income from the rental?
So renting out a room in your house, I think you do need permission from the bank. But the good thing is that you don't need to switch your mortgage, right? So if you want to rent out your property, it's not allowed with a residential mortgage, then you need to change your mortgage from a residential to investor's mortgage. Then the interest rates are a little bit higher. Your loan to value can't be 100%. But as mentioned, with the residential mortgage, this is possible as long as you have permission. I don't think there's any costs related to renting it out.
No, what is good to know though is that if you're renting out your whole property, then indeed you have to have a investor's mortgage, but then the income from rent is not taxed. If you're renting out just a room or part of your property, then that income is taxed actually. So it's not a huge amount, but then it's seen as having a roommate that is paying part of your costs instead of using the property purely as an investment. So good to keep in mind. Okay, then a question from Sumalik. What are the pros and cons to taking a fixed interest rate versus a variable, considering the volatility of the market?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question to answer, right? So I think this depends on your situation. It depends on what the future will looks like, right? If I had a glazen ball, I would have told you what to do. But yeah, I think this is something you have to discuss with a mortgage advisor. It depends on the person, on your situation, how long are you planning to stay, all those kind of things.
Yeah, for example, if you can get like the variable rate is now I think hovering at 2% or so, it's rather low, whereas a fixed interest rate is 4.5%. Yeah, if you want to stay here for a long time, then the fixed interest rate is a bit smarter because you don't know what the market's going to do. But if you're just going to buy a property and then sell it again in 2 years, then maybe the variable rate is more something for you. But indeed, have a chat with a mortgage advisor about this, as that's definitely their specialty. In terms of prices for houses, do you see a decrease occurring at all?
Yeah, so good question. It depends a bit on the property. So it's the prices have been decreasing a little bit, and I expect that we'll see similar numbers for Q4 as we saw in Q3. For those of you who are interested, please check the database or the website of the NVM. I think the numbers will be published maybe next week or otherwise the week thereafter. So it depends on the location, right? Certain areas, people are still very, certain areas are still very popular. For others, you'll see that the prices are decreasing a little bit faster. So it's hard to say, but in general, properties are becoming a little bit less expensive. And even though you might not see it on the asking price, yeah, the overbidding for Rotterdam is not as common as before, so that might lead to cheaper properties.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it. That was our last question for tonight.
All right. Thank you, Ludo, for supporting.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you for hosting tonight.
And thank you guys for joining. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Yeah, I want to wish you a good night, a lovely night, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.